Deep in the drowned swamps of Velen, where war has scorched the fields and hunger has hollowed out the villages, lies a place where even the most desperate peasants fear to tread. It's a place of marsh gas and ghost lights, where paths twist back on themselves and time feels older than the sun. Here, hidden behind a facade of folktale and children's rhymes, dwell three beings the locals call the Ladies of the Wood, and Geralt of Rivia knows them by another, far more fitting name, the Crones of Crookback Bog. They're protectors, predators, and something far stranger, a living echo of Europe's darkest fairy stories. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today, we are going outside of the Elder Scrolls universe and jumping into another game. My childhood in gaming growing up was dominated by two series, The Elder Scrolls and The Witcher. I am planning to add more Witcher lore content on this channel, so hopefully you enjoy this one. In this video, we are going to peel back their tapestry, thread by thread, to understand where they came from, what they are, and why they remain one of The Witcher 3's most haunting creations. The first time the game whispers about them is through a seemingly innocent children's rhyme you find on a tattered page during the Ladies of the Wood quest. It speaks of three kindly ladies who feed the hungry, watch over orphans, and protect the forest. On the surface, it's a comforting folktale, exactly the sort of things mothers would recite to lull their children to sleep. But as Geralt quickly realizes, it's also a warning written in code. The so-called ladies are Bruis, Wispis, and Weavis, three ancient beings who may predate human settlement in the continent. They are bound to the bog's lifeblood, drawing power from its mud, its reeds, and the offerings of desperate mortals. The isolated corners of our world harbor creatures older than humanity. The crones of Crookback Bog are such beings. The game hints at an older tragedy as well. Beneath the whispering hillock sleeps a powerful spirit, sometimes called the true Lady of the Wood. Long ago, the crones served her, or perhaps betrayed her, and after she was bound, they seized her domain. That backstory is never spelled out in full, but its very ambiguity makes the sisters feel ancient and mythic, as if you've stumbled into a story that was already going on long before Geralt arrived. CD Projekt Red didn't pull the crones out of thin air. They built them on layers of real folklore. Lead quest writers drew heavily from Eastern European myths, more specifically the Baba Yaga, the archetypal swamp witch who lives in a hut on chicken legs, and the cannibalistic crone of Hansel and Gretel who fattens up children for her oven. Concept artists have said in interviews that they wanted each sister to look like part of the swamp itself, not like a Halloween witch. So Bruis is bloated and slick, with a permanent smirk and rotting teeth, always gnawing on some half-cooked animal. Wispis is wiry and veiled, with talon-like fingers and charms rattling in her hair, whispering prophecies. Weavis is the oldest and strangest, weaving hair and entrails into grotesque tapestries, her body partly hidden under matted rags and feathers. Each of them represents a different face of the witch archetype: the glutton, the seer, the spinner of fate. This attention to detail means that when you meet them, you don't just see three villains. You feel like you're standing in front of a living folk story, something that's been told and retold for generations. Even their hut, perched on stilts above the bog, echoes the chicken-legged house of Baba Yaga. It's an uncanny mix of comfort and menace. Children's drawings on the walls, cauldrons simmering with who knows what, and just out of sight, the smell of rot. The Crones' storyline is introduced as a side quest, but it quickly becomes one of the moral centers of the Velen arc. Through Gran, Anna, the Bloody Baron's missing wife, Geralt learns that they keep a household of orphans, feeding and sheltering them like kindly aunts. Yet we soon discover that the children are essentially livestock, being fattened for a ritual feast. The moment you put that together is one of the game's sharpest shocks. The nursery rhyme you heard at the start wasn't quaint, it was a menu. And then the game hands you one of its classic no-win choices. Beneath a massive oak tree in the Whispering Hillock is a brown spirit claiming to be the original Lady of the Wood. Free it, and the children will escape, but the villagers of Downwarren will be massacred in retribution. Should you kill it, and you save the village, the children are then taken by the crones. Their fate is left unsaid, but obvious. There is no morally clean option, only consequences. This is CD Projekt Red at their best, using quest designs to make you feel the weight of myth and your choices. In folktales, bargains with the supernatural always have a price. Even Geralt, the professional monster slayer, cannot break that rule. The Crones' reach doesn't end with Velen. In the main story, we learn that they briefly captured Ciri. They weren't trying to keep her safe, however. They wanted a taste of her Elder Blood power. She only escaped because the Wild Hunt had intervened. Later, during the Bald Mountain quest, Geralt and Ciri crash the Sabbath, one of the game's most memorable set pieces. Villagers wear goat masks, drums pound in the dark, and the sisters take on their monstrous forms for battle. It's a scene that feels like something out of a pagan nightmare, a ritual gone wrong, a community enthralled by powers it barely understands. Depending on your choices, you can kill Bruis and Wispis here. Weavis transforms into a swarm of crows and escapes. A neat nod to folklore where witches rarely die outright, but return in new guises. Even in defeat, the crones feel inevitable, like a curse that will simply settle back into the marsh and wait for the next desperate soul. You defy the ladies, you shall defy destiny itself. CDPR has called Velen's intertwined plot our experiment in layering tragedy, merging the Bloody Baron arc with the Crones to create intersecting personal and mythic stakes. The team built pacing charts to make sure that every choice here felt consequential. This is why players still argue it today. You're not just ticking boxes on a quest log, you're inhabiting a folktale where you're never quite sure who's the hero and who's the monster. And that is the Crones' real legacy. They're not just boss fights or quest givers. They're the perfect example of how The Witcher 3 takes old myths and makes them feel alive, breathing, morally complicated. When people talk about how deep the writing in this game is, as well as talking about the consequences of one's actions, they're often thinking of Crookback Bog. The Crones of the Crookback Bog are not just simple villains. Their hunger, fate, and the desperate bargains of people strike when they're starving and afraid. They're also a mirror, showing us how easily comforting stories can hide a predatory truth. CD Projekt Red took these ancient archetypes and made them unforgettable. Whether you saved the children or the village, whether you confronted them or walked away, the crones stay with you because they feel like they were always there, lurking in the marsh, waiting. What choices did you make in Velen? Did you side with the villagers or the spirit, or try to outsmart the crones? Let me know in the comments section below, and if you enjoyed this dive into the Witcher lore, something different from my usual topics in the Elder Scrolls universe, subscribe for more. We've only just begun to scratch the surface of the continent's darkest legends.